And once again, I want to thank Danny, who's going to be doing our tracking for us once we get into production on this whole seed. She's going to be doing all our tracking to let us know what it is that they've gotten, what they've found, things that they've seen, whatever it is that we might have missed, because 2 players going at once, we're going to miss stuff. And she helps to make us sound professional.
Hey, sometimes when you're just playing yourself, you miss what you did. So, double that.
Yeah, for the record, the number of times I've gone, I have fought the pirates of Provoca. I've done this and wandered away and not talked to the Pirate King afterwards, Bicky, and gotten his key item. Oh, I kick myself every time.
Do you kick the same shin each time, or do you alternate?
It still feels painful either way. Yeah, you're supposed to be on camera. You're the players.
Well, the scene hasn't transitioned over yet. They're kind of there.
No. You're the stars. We're just talking for you.
I think they're trying to decide if they're brave enough to touch the camera. Well, the number 1 rule of production is if it's working, don't touch it.
Yeah, well, that's true. Caleb just had to ruin everything. Caleb, I think you lost your phone there. There you go. Yeah. Here, have a treat.
Have a Caleb snack.
You beat me to it.
Oh, man. About to chew really loudly in the ears of everyone on listening. I thought that was a bad idea.
Let's see. We talked about NPC shuffle. We talked about the map edits. We've talked about they need key items, but maybe we didn't mention that with that NPC shuffle, it changes around what you're looking for. So in the vanilla game, you had to find the TNT in a chest somewhere. You had to find the ruby somewhere. You had to find the floater.
Yes.
Of course, you knew where these things were,
yeah, in the vanilla
but you
game.
had to find them.
Yes.
Even with the randomizer, you knew what you were looking for. But with NPC shuffle, you don't necessarily need every item. So you have to be conscious of what you actually need. Things like the Mystic Key. You have to have means of transportation that may or may not require the floater.
Yeah, there are specific key items you need to be able to get through the game. If you're going to get to Lich, the boss of the Earth Dungeon, you are going to need to have the Rod. The Rod blocks you just past the vampire at the midpoint. Rod lets you break the slab that blocks the last 2 levels of the dungeon so you can get to the Lich. Normally, you'd go down, you'd fight the vampire would give you the ruby, you'd go turn the ruby at the Titan would let you access Sarda would have the Rod because he was no longer golfing. And then you could go take his golf club and go break the slab afterwards because it wasn't that strong a slab, and you probably could have broken it anyway if you just tried harder. And then gone and fought Lich. You needed to go do a convoluted set of things so you could get the Oxyale so you could breathe underwater so you could go fight Kraken. You needed to get 2 different key items so you could get into the Sky Tower so you could go fight Tiamat and maybe fight Warmech if you were feeling spicy. And then the only thing you really needed to do to get to Carrie was to have some sort of canoe so you could sail the river system to go to her volcano and do everything that Carrie needed you to do. Or if you were like me, you short-circuit that and you go and hit Ice Cave instead, get the floater, get the airship, and then go back to Carrie when you felt like it. Because Carrie's just kind of there. Her volcano just requires you to have something to access it.
Vanilla game, Lich was the only fiend you had to beat in order.
Yeah.
The rest you could reverse the order if you wanted to.
Do any way you want, yeah. Go search around for treasures for a while, class change, grind up on your characters, and then when you're level 40 and beast, go take out all of them with a single punch from your black belt, if that was what you really wanted to do. Which is still fun to do in the randomizer, I will admit.
True. But you may not realize it in the vanilla game because you don't get high enough levels, but when you get that black belt, very high level, he is a wrecking machine.
He really is. One punch man. So I thought it'd be wise if we actually pulled up the flag so we could reference what it is these players are going
Trivial
to be
details.
doing. Yeah. One other thing that you're going to notice that is interesting that we have in here is what we call item magic. Trenton, what is item magic?
Well, of course, the base game had items that would cast spells. So, for example, if you used the Mage Staff in battle, it would cast Fire 2 on all the enemies. Not 3, not 1, Fire 2.
4 was right out.
So that will be randomized to some other different spell in the game. Well, it may even still be Fire 2, but we won't, we'll see. Yeah, it changes the name of it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It changes it to the
It will tell you what spell it
cast.
is.
Yeah, so the traditional defense sword, even if it still casts the spell of Ruse that it would cast in the vanilla game, will now be the Ruse sword. The ones I like are when you get like the Lightning 3 hammer, so it's the Thor hammer +1.
Yeah.
Things like that. So those are definitely in there. Sometimes it's useful. You can end up with nuke staffs and Cure 4 hammers, and those are lovely to find. And then sometimes you get like...
if you gave them one of those on this roll, we are re-rolling. I'm just saying that right now.
Vizada rolled this. That's not my fault.
I'm sorry. Vizada, if you mess this up, we're re-rolling.
There you go.
He says he's confident.
But other times you can get things like the Dark Hammer or the Alit Staff, which are of limited use throughout the game. So it'll be... It's a giveth and taketh away kind of deal with what they do.
Hey, we've got arrows.
Thumbs up.
We've got thumbs up. Caleb, your hair's on fire.
What else can you screw
Dengwoo,
up
Caleb's
today,
going to win this.
Caleb, come on.
Okay, they cannot hear us.
They cannot.
All right.
We're just viciously taunting him.
Thumbs up, you ready? One more bro fist?
One more handshake.
All right. Let's go in 5, 4,
All right.
3, 2, 1, go!
And we're off in Canaria. And the first thing they both do is they check out what the spells are that or the classes they're going to get. And they get the lovely White Mage, which is not entirely useful.
White Mage is probably the hardest start, but it depends on what spells they have here. So they got level 1 Fade, and this seed is too easy.
Too easy. Re-roll.
If I wasn't convinced it would take 10 minutes. So they're going to be able to blast AoEs, and they might even drop the Thief.
Yeah, the Fade is going to be very useful for the early game as well as the mid and the late game. But the other thing that they got there that is of consequence is they have Exit. Exit is very useful because Exit allows you to go into a dungeon, explore it as much as you like, cast a spell, and immediately get right back out to the entrance of the dungeon. So if there's stuff you see in this dungeon that you really want to keep, you can exit out. Their early and mid game is now really well tended with those 2 spells.
They have also taken out the bridge boss, that is the credits.
Yes.
So by seeing it once and saving, there's no chance that they'll have to walk through that whole sequence again.
Yep.
So our enemy encounters are also shuffled, which is why we're seeing a wolf there instead of an imp, and the encounter rates are lowered. So we're not getting in as many fights as vanilla, but we're also getting bonus experience, so it works out well.
We upped the experience, and we shuffled the encounters. So you're going to get the same enemies in the same regions, because Final Fantasy works everything by giant tiles across its map. But you're not going to see, like, War Mech showing up in the intro area or something like that. It's still fairly sane.
Oh, got the TNT from the King and the Ruby.
That's indicating an early time that they have to go over there and turn that in as soon as they get that ship. I don't think we were kind enough to give them the ship at the start, so.
No, but they've got access to a couple more towns to look for it. That early Ruby, though, does suggest that perhaps Titan is going to be required, and that's a long walk.
That's a very long walk. So they're going to be going over to Provoca as soon as they've gotten their turn-ins done here from the King and the Princess. Danny already updating our notes, so we know exactly what's going on.
I needed to go for the glasses percent run to read the screen.
So you can see?
It helps. I wasn't sure about the font size till we got started here.
Well, and it's interesting.
Hey, we've got the cube.
I was going to note that it's interesting to note that Caleb and Dengwoo both took four party members in their party, and by gentleman's agreement, since we had donations for it, they've both agreed to keep their thief, even though they could at any time swap out that thief if they wanted to. Was that Elfland over there at Provoca?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
That's what we're being told.
Mazada confirmed.
Fast is Black Magic level 1, so if we get either a Red Mage or Black Mage, then we will have plenty of fast charges available. In fact, this is a seed it looks like would really favor Red Wizards.
I think so. Fades and all the stuff that they've gotten. Well, I was going to point out about the thing I have now immediately forgotten.
Elfland?
That is good commentary right there. I was talking about before
Ship?
Elfland, and then I wanted to make sure Nah, I don't
Keeping the thief?
Oh, 4 party members. Thank you. We managed to get back there. Caleb traditionally plays a 3-member party. he tends to keep one on the ground or just take a none to begin with when he can, especially in tavern mode. And the reason to do something like that is because the experience among your party members is split, as in any Final Fantasy game, among anyone that's still surviving. So if you only rock 3 party members, you get more experience on all the ones that are still alive. But due to the gentleman's agreement, and I believe the exit and fades they want, they both were like, no, we're going 3 white mages right now along with that thief because that's too valuable. If we hadn't made them agree to keep the thief, then they probably have 4 white mages right now. And we got a crowd there from the TNT turn-in.
We did, which means we're right in the area to check that out. We also got a nice little meme check of the game. Hooray!
Hooray! The Hooray Dwarf. Everyone likes the Hooray Dwarf. Although,
He's such a nice guy.
Dengwoo decides to wander away and not go turn in the crown. That's an interesting choice.
I'm not sure he checked the chests up here the first time through. He may have just killed Garland.
I mean, he's got the fades. It's certainly not a big deal to do it now. He's got more than enough charges to go do this.
We're also getting a check in Matoya's gave just the 3 loose chests that are here, and it's a loose ship.
A loose ship. Now, ship is interesting, and Trenton, you might be able to tell me this better because it's one of those weird instances. I know there are certain key items in the game that don't necessarily qualify as key items. Is the ship one of the ones that actually qualifies as a key item, or is it not going to influence the count that they're going to have to do?
It absolutely does influence it. The best way I can describe it is if you found it in a box and it gave you the fanfare music, it counts.
Except for the bridge. The bridge doesn't count.
I'm not positive about that.
I'm pretty certain that when we've discussed it in the past, this is sometimes the randomizer giveth and it taketh away. So you need to be able to keep track of your count sometimes just to make sure. Ship is a weird instance. Bridge I know does not count, but thankfully they already got the bridge. We don't have to deal with that.
Somewhere in Twitch chat, Meridian is saying, how many times do I have to tell these people?
Exactly. The people that actually know us are like, how do you not remember this already? And that's like, because I'm bad at this game. That's why I'm talking and they're playing.
So the Elfland entrance has level 2 nuke. The magic in this seat is just ridiculous.
Oh,
we just don't have any
wow.
black magic casters yet. Well, we did find the fighter, so we've got the tank, but he doesn't have a weapon yet, so he's a limited use. And, hey, the imps set mute. So they can't cast those fades.
So I think the question you really need to ask is, do you want imps that can stop your nuke? Because these are imps that can stop your nuke.
Well, as long as they're still runnable, you can run away.
I'm getting shade thrown at me. He doesn't even know what we're talking about, but he just knows this sucks.
He just knows we're saying something. Oh, they got trance. Not trance, they got hold. So they're stunning the party members, too. I didn't see that the first time, but he got away.
Although I do want to note, for the people working in the booth, the names of the 2 party members or the 2 players need to be switched. Thank you, because I was saying Dengwoo was the one that was doing that, but that's actually Caleb who got stuffed.
Oh.
And
yeah.
we're laughing really
Indeed.
hard at him.
Yeah, Caleb just got his ship there,
Yep.
so now both runners have that.
Yep.
And they are able to explore a lot of the world now. So because of the map edits, they can now get to every town in the game except for 2. They can't get to the one that is Vanilla Lefane, and they cannot get to the one that is Vanilla Gaia.
Yeah, and you have to mention Vanilla because, of course, the towns are shuffled. So they're not certain where the towns that they're looking for might be.
Yeah, we just saw Provoca at Elfland. The next destination would be Melmont, which could be Crescent Lake, or we could have Melmont pop up at any time. You are duly warned, chat. We could see a Melmont sighting at any time.
Yes. Lufane, by the way, is actually not bad to see early in the game on a tavern shuffle mode most of the time, because traditionally we have the ability to turn on what we call Lufenish Hospitality, which adds an inn and a clinic to Lufane, whatever you want to call it. The Lufenish land. Lupa land. So, by having Lufania Hospitality turned on with Tavern mode turned on, you get another class you can go check for. So that's really nice. While Lufane itself is kind of useless to go to early game, it's useful when you can actually get a class there.
I think that one is guaranteed to be the duplicate, though.
It's guaranteed to be a duplicate, but if you find it first, it's no longer a duplicate.
True.
Yeah. So, great to find.
So the magic is fantastic. The early game magic in this game is just ridiculous available, and we didn't touch on that too much, but the spells are rolled to a different level. So when you consider that the strongest black magic spell in the game is Nuke, and at vanilla that's level 8, well, then there's a 7 in 8 chance, and that's not math while live on Twitch. It's just a statement of fact. There's a 7 in 8 chance that the game is going to be nicer to you than vanilla on that one.
Mm-hmm. And it was very nice, them getting like the end game white magic spell of Fade at level 1. You said Nuke at level 2. Those are ridiculous spells to get early. Basically, any mage build they want to do right now is going to be justifiable simply because they can.
Yeah, and warp and exit, your transportation spells, are normally class change locked. To have access to them this early, it would make a huge difference if you had them that early in the vanilla game, because, for example, after Vampire, instead of having to walk out, you'd be able to warp out.
Just have Scotty beam you up and you're right there again. You don't have to worry about it.
Looks like we've got Black Mage here. This is Onrak at the Melmond entrance.
Mm-hmm. So that does mean that includes the Onrak dungeon is buried here because we didn't do entrance or floor shuffle. So if they need to go turn in that Oxiel so they can go fight Kraken, which we know they do, they'll be coming here to Melmond instead of the traditional spot of Onrak.
Yeah, now, sometimes
those pirates don't stand a chance.
Those two towns that we don't have access to without the airship are not necessarily always required, but at this point we're missing Crescent Lake and Gaia, and we will need at least one of them in all likelihood, unless somehow we didn't need both items. So very likely the airship's required.
Yeah, with the number of loose we have and the key items or the extra items that are in the pool, more than likely they're going to have to hit there, and they're going to need to see, what is populating those towns so they can get their turn-ins taken care of. It's a nice party build that he's got there, though. 2 white mages with Fade and Exit, a fighter that he can start buffing up, and a thief to, run from now and probably eventually kiss the ground.
And a spiffy new canoe for his inventory, as well as a slab. So the slab we still turn into Dr. Un, who we haven't seen yet.
Nope.
The canoe will also allow us access to the waterfall, which is another dungeon that you have to go to in the vanilla game and usually in the randomizer as well, because that's one of our item locations.
And I want to point out that at level 2 along with Nuke was another really nice spell to have, Lock 2. That's a spell that we've actually put a fix on in the randomizer so that Lock and Lock 2 always hit. And what Lock does is it locks down. Boy, it's called
that.
My.
Oh my, this play.
It's an interesting one. It locks down a boss to make them slower, effectively. So if you find one that has a high evade and is managing to avoid all of your attacks, you can use Lock on them, and it will, over time, as you keep casting it, lower and lower and lower their ability to evade your attacks. Lock is fantastic, and it's one of those buff spells that, due to the fixes, as Dengwoo gets stopped by bats, it's one of those fixes that really helps to improve the whole of this game and the strategies you can use against bosses in a lot of ways.
Oh, great, Axe. He finally has a weapon on that fighter. So Dengwoo has come into the Earth Cave. The rod is required to be able to complete it, which we do not have.
We don't. But I think
he's doing this to check the chest that is behind the vampire.
Yeah, he's banking on it to see what's in the vampire chest. He's got Exit, though, so while this move normally in vanilla is really time-consuming, it's not so bad here for this version because he can come in, check some chests, see what's going on here as he's clearly rocking out to his music, and then exit right out afterwards and continue on with his life. It's a good check. There's decent chest density for early game. I don't necessarily hate this play. Plus, it's spicy.
The other thing he's doing is he's checking these chests on floors 2 and 3. He left the floor 1 alone, and he can save outside and then reset out and not even need the exit charge to do that. So,
and I think
little optimizations.
That's really a strategy of his. He tends to avoid Earth 1 until after he's cleared the rest of the dungeon, just personal preference on his part. So.
Who checks the bat party room?
He did that for me. I like to meme and check the bat party room. It doesn't get enough love.
Okay, well, we're going to have a little bit until we get to this treasure chest, so it looks like we have a message, and let's go ahead and hear that.
Oh, there's no message, but it is a $20 direct contribution from Spleeby. Thank you for the support.
Thank you. So George is out clubbing again. You know, he needs to get over that.
George.
Yeah.
George.
Caleb gets... You can use fun present names, by the way,
Yes.
and that was one that it will change to. And
The
everybody say hi to the vampire.
Lit Gauntlet came out. Managed to survive a very low roll on that fade, and another Lit Gauntlet's coming out again.
Yeah,
Like it.
I think he only had the one charge of fade available.
Wow, he's that vampire
And
was
bye to
actually
the
a lot
vampire.
biffy. We are traditionally used to seeing the vampire show up and immediately die again. He actually put up a bit of a fight, all things considered.
Yeah, he's usually under very low. Well, there's one of our required items. That is Chime. We'll need that for a dungeon. Vampire's usually low on HP when it's only the single one, so he's not very threatening at all. So now Dengwoo has saved, and he doesn't have to walk out anything that he doesn't want to.
Yep.
He can just reset out and not
As he
have to
just
step.
did. It's almost as if you knew exactly what he was going to do.
So one of the reasons you do that in this game is in the NES version, the fights work by encounter table. So at any given time, you are X number of steps in a dungeon from your next encounter, and that doesn't change unless you do a hard reset of the game.
Oh,
What is
that
this seed?
worth keeping. So that's the item magic we were talking about. Do you want a staff with nuke? That is a staff with nuke.
Yeah, so that you're either walking out or casting exit 4.
And you can tell he's like, I don't really want to do this, but that is too good an item to let go of.
No, you can't.
That's-
And so Caleb has made the same dive, and he'll probably end up with the same result unless he forgets the first floor of Earth. Who would do a thing like that last week?
Yeah, no, I've done that absolutely before.
I did it last week. We didn't get a chance to talk about that. Anyways, hey, another thing we didn't touch on is we have our unrunnable encounters shuffled, although in this case the wizards were unrunnable anyways. But when that feature was introduced, they wanted to make it fair because how do you know that this is an unrunnable encounter if it's not the same?
Because the traditional game wouldn't actually tell you if an encounter was unrunnable or not, even though there were unrunnables. They would just let you try and fail.
And fail, and fail,
And fail some more, yeah.
until you're dead.
Yeah. It was really quite rude. You go in there and get a pack of frost giants and frost wolves, and you're like, why am I not running from this? Well, it's because you can't, but the game wouldn't tell you.
So the run command, which we just saw in the last fight for Caleb, has now been changed to wait for the vampire. So hopefully you got to see that before the vampire was dead, because by vampire.
That was an instance where the vampire just died.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what we're used to.
Illustrated for you.
Another thing that we have as part of the randomizer is obviously not a randomization, but there's a lot of quality of life things that have been added. And as they've been shopping, you've perhaps noticed that they're able to buy these items 10 at a time, and that is a huge save. Another thing that anyone who's familiar with the vanilla game will notice right away is just how much quicker these transitions are from one screen to another. And in talking to Entroper, he's the lead developer, who said a lot of that just came from code cleanup. And then that work has been built on by other developers as we've gone along. I know Nitz has done some of the work on that to make the game just play faster and faster. So you're still getting the FF1 experience, just faster.
Much faster, yeah. You watch the original game, which I every once in a while go back to because I have to test a ROM or test something else that we're doing, and you see, like, you wander into town at, like, a fourth of the speed you're getting here, and then it's like, and you can see just how fast this game goes with all of it, and that's one of the improvements that managed to take a game that, you could play with the randomizer in 3 hours and get it down to 2.5, 2 hours. It's just the overall speed of the play experience itself. Going back to the traditional vanilla is very hard after you get used to the randomizer. I much prefer playing improved vanilla at this point that we have as an option on the flag sets, just because it works better.
The king in Northwest Castle gave us the herb, and then we found out it was Astos all along.
How dare he fooling us about that? Did anyone see that coming?
Also, we got a route divergence as Caleb is going over to the ice cave.
I like that play. I mean, I like any play where someone goes outside the comfort zone of their levels. Although, if Caleb has, fades and was smart enough to go pick up that nuke stick, I kind of feel like this is well within his levels at this point. That nuke stick, of course, allowing him to have unlimited charges of nuke, not just, a couple.
Did he go back for it? Because I was watching the Astos thing to see what the item was.
Don't remember him getting it, so that might be on him. And you can see he kept the thief. It's on the ground, but he did keep it. He
It's
honored
still there.
the agreement.
So there was Stun Touch, which obviously the Bones would not normally have. There's a few enemies that will attack with Status Element. Most commonly, that's Poison. The Prince wakes up, gives us the Adamant, so we have to go back to the Dwarves once again.
We see those dwarves a lot sometimes in this game when we have constant turn-ins to do to them, since there's 2 key item locations there, plus some treasure chests. And if they get the key, they'll be visiting more than likely a 4th time as long as the dwarf doesn't give it to them, because there's a good armory down there that they're going to want to visit as well.
And a minor inconvenience for Caleb, who is now hauling around a statue that used to be his fighter.
You know, you got Fade on your white mages. I'm sure you'll be fine.
Just sleep it off. Wait, that doesn't work in this one.
Yeah, Stone is one of those status effects that's really ugly in the NES game. Because you have to be able to use a spell or a potion to be able to cure it, but you can't do it in battle because you can't revive characters in battle. Oh.
Ooh. Spectres with Blaze, so that's a higher level fire magic skill that is just going to kill you at this point. Because we have no resistances and no stats for magic defense.
That is one of those instances I appreciate him going back in and trying again. But there's certain rules that I have when I'm playing this game. And one of those is when I see nasty encounters like that, I have to reevaluate what I'm doing. And I will bash myself against a dungeon like that 3 times, and then I'll walk away. Because then he's on number 3 right now. Because at a certain point, you're just going to be going like, is this really worth it?
Well, and in particular, that was on a trap tile. And that means you have to get through that tile to be able to complete the dungeon. Now, you only have to do it once, which is probably playing into his thinking here. Because he's just going to cast Exit after he gets the treasure chest he's going for. However, you're still going to have to get through that, and it's kind of deep to walk to that. Meanwhile, the Adamant is going to turn into the Oxyale, so now we're able to access the Sea Shrine.
Well, and part of the problem is that he saw that on the encounter that he's not going to be able to avoid. That was a spike tile that was right in front of the doors for him to get into the bottom half of the dungeon, and he's going to see that from that blaze from those zombies every single time he goes down there. So that's not going to be fun.
You're not listening to me, are you?
I'm sorry, Danny was talking at me.
Don't blame Danny. Danny's the fantastic one.
It was my fault.
Okay.
Danny was talking at me. I was getting her information. I tuned you out. That's on me.
So,
was it informative when we both did it, though? Did they really get that information?
Well, you did touch on one concept I didn't. With these enemies, they have, generally speaking, one of 4 things they could do. They can do a standard attack. They can attack with magic if they have a spell list. They can attack with an ability if they have an ability list, which is separate from the spell list. Or they could run away if they feel like it. So
the undead don't tend to run away normally.
Yeah, so it's not a guarantee that you're going to see that blaze every time you're in that encounter, and that was another factor that he was considering when doing that. Another quality of life thing that's going on here is the party is moving very fast through here. They're moving at dash speed, which is the same speed that the ship operates at. And that is just on by default, but you can transition back to normal walking speed by holding the B button. It used to be the other way around. You hold B to dash, but then they decided, you know what? Instead of people holding one button for an hour and a half, how about we switch the default state? And now it slows down instead. Caleb, what's going on with this waterfall?
You mean Darkman?
Sure.
So, if you're used to the traditional waterfall layout, you might be noticing that this looks a little weird. And that's because we have what's called proc-gen waterfall going on. We actually have 3 different floors that can be procedurally generated waterfall and 2 of the earth floors. The earth floors are still a little buggy while we see the loot come up at Ice Cave. The earth floors are still a little buggy, so we don't tend to play with these in flag sets where we know we have to finish the seed out, like tournament or marathon settings. But waterfall always works because there's only 1 floor, there's only 1 door. It all works out really well as Dengwoo gets lost in this waterfall. So it just kind of lays out a path and then just randomly puts all the other hallways and everything else it wants down and gives you a long tour of the waterfall sometimes. I think 3 or so weeks ago we saw one that was actually an infinite loop. and you had to find the right little branching path off the side, and Caleb spent a good, I'd say, 15 minutes in there trying to figure out where the heck he was going. That was pretty funny.
That was a doozy. So loot is required. It's not required till the very end game, but it's normally the second item you get.
From the princess, and then wonder why it is she gave to you. Thanks.
And then it just sits there talking about an evil gate. What's an evil gate? I don't know. Does it jaywalk or something?
Are you asking me to self-improve? Do you just feel like I need to learn to play this? Because I don't know what you're giving me for.
All right. Here is the room that we are looking for. There's going to be another trap tile here. Only one whiz mummy is a little unfortunate. They're pretty good experience, especially in the early game. So you like seeing as many of them here as you can get. Dark is coming out.
Ooh, that's so scary.
Yeah, it doesn't really do a lot. Especially not against Nuke.
Dark is supposed to lower your ability to hit, but it's such a marginal amount that it affects your 2-hit rate that it's not even worth worrying about it. Dark is one of those spells where you sit there going, thank you for casting that. Please keep casting that. You're not doing anything to me.
Tail from the robot is going to enable us to have class change, and Crescent Lake ends up being Gaia's, so we're going to be able to release the fairy from the bottle and get another item.
It's interesting to find the tail here. It's definitely going to influence what they do, even though they found the black belt earlier, and that's because the black belt actually does not benefit from the tail. Trenton, why is that?
That'll be the magic defense. It goes up faster for a black belt than it does the master. And I went too fast for me to see what the character class is. But even if it's red mage, I don't think they're going to change at this point because they've already got the spells learned and you'd have to go back and relearn them, and it's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, the black belt is the only class that actually doesn't improve in vanilla Final Fantasy from being class changed. For whatever reason, they programmed it where the black belt gets 4 points of magic defense per level, whereas the master only gets 1. So if you upgrade them and then go do your grind afterwards, your black belt is going to take a ton of damage from all the spells and be much more susceptible to the insta-kills and everything else. It's much better to just not class change them. So
maxed price gold bracelets were for sale here. They're the best defense you're going to be able to buy for your mages. And what you saw displayed there was something we call the confused old men. And it takes them from being these nice old men who just stand around in a circle to they start walking.
Yeah. I think that's,
and finding the right one can be a challenge.
I think the explanation for that, and I believe it was Nitz, one of our developers who found it, it was traditionally on their own, the old men are set to a single tile walking path, so they just have to stand there. And he just realized that you could just delete the walking path, and they just go wandering. So you get this pack of confused old men just going anywhere they want. And I have actually caught them halfway out of the path at that point, trying to escape.
Oh, they can absolutely get there. They can get out into the town.
It's amazing.
So Caleb is heading up in the waterfall direction. Dengwoo is heading over to Castle Ordeals. This is something you may have learned in the vanilla game, is that once you have the canoe, there's nothing stopping you from docking your ship right there and going on in here.
If you're already here and you don't have the floater, it's actually faster to come here via ship than it ever is to go and find the floater, turn it in, and get the airship back over here because the walk is longer. If you have the ship and you're in the area, dock it and bring the ship in instead. Now, something else you're going to notice if you try to play the traditional game is that the path through these teleporters is a little wonky.
Yeah, normally in the original game, all you have to do is take the south pillar. Well, they have no idea which order they got to go in. So they have to figure out 4 choices for levels of this that have choices, because one of them is a 4 choice instead of a 2 choice.
Yeah, it's kind of rude. But it also means that you're going to have to learn how to actually path through this dungeon for once.
Now, with the encounter table being what it is, sometimes you will learn a couple choices, reset out, and then take a different path to figure it out. But the biggest thing is just remembering which of the pillar rooms you've already been in to be able to tell if you moved forward or backwards.
But there is an interesting shortcut that they haven't found, and it's one that you can't use in the traditional game just due to the way that the traditional game is laid out. And that would be?
That'd be the use of the warp spell, which we don't have, so it doesn't do them any good.
They can't use it, but it's good to touch upon it while we're here.
By the way, Caleb got 4 whiz mummies off this, so he's going to get much better experience from this fight. And the early game, these levels are not critical at all because we're just killing everything with these AoE magic like it's nothing. But we're going to get to some harder enemies as we go along. Some enemies that are going to take a nuke and say, is that your best shot, really?
Yep. That's good. So yeah, if you have warp when you come into Castle Ordeals, warp allows you to warp yourself back to the previous teleporter if you take a wrong turn. I love having warp. I also love being able to laugh at them for the fact that they didn't have warp. So that sucks for them.
So double win for you is what you're
Oh
saying?
yeah, I thought it was great. He actually got through it too quickly. I was a little disappointed.
We also didn't mention that the shops are selling, shop prices have been randomized, obviously, which is why we've got, well, mind
The
that,
max
but
price gold bracelet.
yeah.
Yep.
We'll see things all over the place, but also those shop items have been randomized, so we saw some really good gear for Fighter was for sale there. It was just way out of their price range,
Yeah.
so they didn't purchase any of it.
When it's cheap, it's not bad to pick it up. I like finding a silver sword for like 1,000 because the silver sword's a decent mid-game weapon. You're eventually going to find something that's better than it, like the ice sword or the sun sword, and it's going to be much better for you in the long run. But sometimes you can get some decent fighter gear when you're not checking too many chests, and just get yourself ready for the early and mid-game and just be able to tank stuff with that fighter.
Dengwoo has found the floater at the end of Castle Ordeal, so
Nice.
there is zero doubt whatsoever where he's going next.
Well, and it also ensures that the sailing over to Ordeals and doing it that way is the only way to navigate through this portion of the game, because you're not able to fly over there if the floater's sitting at Ordeals.
Yeah, we could access all of the dungeons at this point with just the ship and canoe, thanks to the map edits, but we wouldn't have access to all the items because we are currently missing Lefane and Melmond. Both of those have an item. Don't necessarily require both of them, but probably do.
Probably. Well, and without the floater, which they're turning in now, they wouldn't be able to get over to the Zardia Isles, as we like to call them. You can't get there. You can see them as you sail past, but there's 3 treasure rooms sitting on those islands, and you can't dock there in any way, shape, or form. So if you want to access them, you need that floater. Now Dengwoo can, and although the likelihood of there being a loose item there is low, that might be something they have to check for at some point, because I don't recall seeing anything except the ship right now.
Of course, we had the loot, and we purchased the cube. We've also found the chimes, so they have the ability to complete Mirage and Sky.
Loose-wise, though. Have we found any loose besides the
ship.
ship? I think we're only on that one loose right now.
Yeah, he's checking Danny's notes now.
Yeah, I'm double checking. Loose ship. Danny says no, so
Okay.
go Danny.
Bottle turns out to be the Masamune, so not required, but extremely useful because it's just a little tiny, small bit of an upgrade from a great axe.
It's kind of a good sword.
Although he's put it on the thief instead of the fighter.
Oh, bad call. Now, of course, there are some who debate the value of the Masamune over some of the other swords in the game. Some of our people do like the Vorpal sword, what we call the Game Changer. Vorpal has a very high hit rate, especially with the weapon fixes on. So Vorpal can be very useful with the
Small correction, crit rate.
Thank you. I was about to say crit when you corrected me, but no, you are correct. Crit rate, not hit rate. Thank you. And then, of course, there are some of us in the community that like to do other weapons and prove you can beat the game with any weapon. Spellzap recently, who's sitting on the couch with us, managed to beat the game with a scimitar, one of the earliest weapons of the game, proving the value of a temper, one of the spells you can get that will buff your weapons. If you temper a weapon high enough, you can kill any enemy in the game with it.
All right, so Dengwoo has class changed. One of the interesting things about the thief is while their combat is not necessarily their strength as thieves, once they turn into a ninja, they are actually the weapons master of the game. They can equip everything except the Excalibur. I think there's one other that's like, not Thor's hammer, but some like white mage weapon that they can't, but basically everything.
But why would you put that on them anyway once you have access to things like the katana? That's just silly.
Yeah. And we found 2 Vorpals, by the way, so there's
Very
plenty
nice.
of crit available. Also, as the ninja, you can learn first 4 levels of magic, so Fast and Temper are now learnable by the ninja. Also, the fighter's going to now turn knight is going to be able to learn Fade.
That's a huge amount of options available to them for that fighter and that thief that they're clearly going to be keeping with them for the rest of the game. And with Dengwoo having already class changed, he is getting himself way up there for all of that.
And Caleb has now found his floater. Gonna take the trap tile. The double zombie dragon is a okay source of experience.
Decent.
It's not fantastic, but it's on the better side, especially for what you have access to at this point.
We might see them do a little bit of a grind. I would be surprised with the fighter if they do too much of one, because the really heavily grinding is only something you need to do with the black belt to make sure that they're an invincible tank of fury. With your fighter, once you get enough decent gear on them and get them up to about early to mid-20s, you don't have to worry too much, especially with the buffing spells that they have. They'll be able to handle this game just fine. So if they do any fights, extra fights, it might just be a little bit in Volcano with the double Agama spike tile you might see from them. Or
I think Caleb is out of magic for this zombie dragon, so he's just trying to slap it to death. I'm not sure how well that's going to work out for him, but we'll see. He's going to run. That feels bad.
I agree with that decision, though. That was a good call right there.
And by the way, that's normally an unrunnable encounter, so that's a case where the shuffle worked out very well for him.
Absolutely.
So with his floater, he'll soon be on the way to get the airship as well. We still have not seen Crescent Lake. No, I'm sorry, we've seen Crescent Lake. We've not seen Lefane or Melmond, which both are accessible by airship. Quad X, by the way, is one of those spells. It didn't get a lot of attention in the vanilla game because it's level 8, but at a lower level, it's absolutely fantastic. Dark, why don't you go ahead and explain why? I thought about it first. I didn't say it wrong.
Quad X is a spell that will instantly kill anything that is alive and has less than 300 health. I qualify that by saying alive because the undead are not affected by Quad X, and the golems that you will see in the game, which aren't technically alive, are not affected by Quad X. The only other boss that is not affected by Quad X is Chaos himself. He's protected from it, even though he is very much alive.
Debatable.
All the other bosses in the game, if you get them under 300 health, are susceptible to Quad X, because it's an instant kill with absolutely no blockability to it. Either you're susceptible to it, or you're not. No question about it. Other spells like Zap and Bane and other instant kills you see can be potentially blocked if your MDef is high enough. But Quad X, and along with a couple other power words in the game, like I believe Stun is another one, will just instantly affect you no matter what, if you're below 300 health, and in the case of your players, if they aren't wearing like a ribbon, for example.
We didn't touch on this, but there are a lot of bug fixes that are built into the randomizer. The other thing we didn't really touch on, and I want to make a quick note of it, is a lot of these things we talk about when they're in the randomizer, they're not forced. They're checkboxes. They're options that you can turn on, off, or now in beta version, you can tri-state, which means you don't know if they're on or off until you start playing it.
Which is delightful.
So you can have a really customized experience of the game, basically. You can go back to that improved vanilla you talked about. You don't have to shuffle any of the treasures. You can just speed up the vanilla game, and instead of just under 3-hour world record speed run, I'm not sure if anybody has done an improved vanilla speed run at this point, but
I mean,
it'd be low 2 hours if it even breaks 2 hours.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, because you know where everything is, and you know, like, if you're just playing with standard stats but bug fixes on, I would be surprised if you weren't clocking in at, like, hour-ish at that point, because you just know it all. You know it all. I believe that's the signal that they're using for each other, that they're in the air. That or they're just taunting. Or both.
Yeah, both is probably accurate. So in the lead-up to this, they normally hang out in voice chat with each other, and they're not talking about their run as they're doing it, but they're taunting each other, and they might say things like, "Are you in Topher yet?"
Yeah. Yeah, we wanted to be able to let them talk to each other, but the setup for that at a situation like this, an event like this, was probably going to be too hard, so we just didn't even ask. We're just like, no, you guys just play this like any other rando runner, and, you know, then you can look at each other and give each other death glares if you really want to, which, that's fine.
Yeah, we're only like 4 or 5 feet behind them, so if they weren't having noise canceling going on, they'd hear us say where everything was, etc.
I'm loud. I'm not going to deny that at all.
Dengwoo now is into Ice Cave.
Yeah, he hadn't been here
and
before.
Caleb is into Marsh Cave, so a little route divergence.
Actually, Caleb likes Marsh Cave. I'm not surprised that he's here. He's had good luck, especially in seeds against me, finding key items here that and especially when it's non-incentivized. So like when Marsh ends up with 2 loose items in it that it just shouldn't have, you're kicking yourself because you didn't go there. But Caleb goes there because Caleb likes Marsh Cave, and we hate him for it. No, it's
A loose gold bracelet in the ice cave is notable because again, that's the base. It's short version, the best defense that your mages are going to get. You can find the black and white shirts in the vanilla game, whatever they shuffle to, are slightly better because of the defense, the status defense that they offer. But shorthand, gold bracelet's the best for your mages.
Yeah, it works like you'd expect from any sort of D&D game, essentially. Copper, silver, gold are the standard levels of upgrades. You don't even have to think about how many points these things are going to have. You're just like,
oh my,
gold,
look at that.
Silver. Woo!
So we have the rod in Marsh locked.
What did I say about Marsh? What did I say?
Value in Marsh.
Always value in Marsh when it's Caleb. There is, yeah, as you touched upon them, the black and the white shirts have gold bracelet, I believe, defense. And I think I can't remember what the white shirt has, although I'm sure Spells app knows. But the black shirt has time magic protection as well, one of the few items that does. And then there is another bracelet on top that you can find, traditionally only one in the game, the opal bracelet, or I think in the original translation, it was that another nuke staff?
That was another nuke staff. What is this seed?
Woo!
All right, this better be a really hard Topher. I'm just saying.
It's
now,
going to be really hard if you're going to start stand up to 2 unlimited nukes. I mean, dang.
Yeah, all the stuff we've gotten has a lot of value in the early and mid game, but make no mistake, the bosses can definitely shrug a lot of this off in the late game.
No question.
I mean, you're talking about if one of those R-bones happened to throw off a nuke, it could one-shot Dengwoo's entire party. So that's the difference when you're taking high-level damage instead of early game skills, etc.
I wanted to say at one point that it felt like Dengwoo was a little ahead because he was hitting a lot of places before Caleb was getting to it. But then, now with this looping back and forth that the 2 of them are doing, it does feel a little bit like they're evening up right now. And bear in mind, neither of them technically have defeated any of the dungeons yet. So, any lead you might see right now can easily be wiped away by just how they tackle the dungeons and in what order they do anything. Plus, as we like to call it, Topher is the great equalizer. You could be having a great run at a Topher and then spend an hour just trying to clear it because the bosses there can sometimes be quite nasty.
Finding the rod, though, was pretty big.
That was a huge deal. That gives Caleb quite the edge right there. It's the question of once he finishes up here at Ice Cave, where does Dengwoo go, and does he think to go to Marsh Cave? Is he going to play the game, or is he going to play the player?
He knows Caleb likes to make that play. They have seen each other do every possible combination of everything that you could imagine, and here we go.
Yep. Play the player. So he'll be going to Marsh, presumably going down to the bottom because he has that key. He should get his rod, and it's gonna take away any advantage Caleb had from that. We'll still have to see how even they are at that point.
Well, there is the advantage that Caleb did it first, but that doesn't necessarily translate into anything until you actually use it.
But Caleb is now not going to the Sea Shrine. So where is Caleb going? To go crash into the water.
Yeah.
It's
Checking
not
out
a
Crescent Lake first. This puts them in the area of Volcano, and there's nothing stopping them from doing Volcano right now.
Nope.
They're at a very good level to do it, and obviously with nuke staffs, it'd be pretty routine to get through everything. So I think that'd be a really good play as long as they've got enough heal potions to do it.
Caleb does know we're not playing Final Fantasy V, right? The ship does not go back and forth. Just asking.
I don't know. He just knows we're
Just
throwing shade. He doesn't know what the shade is. He just knows we're throwing some.
Quiet moment. He heard his name probably. He's like, what? What was that? Nope. We're not letting you know anything.
Black Mage from the Tavern, he is going to go ahead and hire one that makes sense because you want access to Fast and Temper.
And we are going to notice here that we have 2 very different party comps at this point. Dengwoo has a full party with a Black Mage, a White Mage, a Thief, and a Ninja. Whereas Caleb, probably keeping that Thief on the ground, is going with the Black Belt over the Fighter. You're going to see very different damage output and very different strategies to get their characters where they need to be.
Biggest thing with a black belt is getting it to level 16. Now, 16 is not epic damage, but 16 is where it gets to be competent damage. So you can get some momentum going with your black belt once he's 16. That's also why he hasn't class changed. We talked about the magic defense earlier, but we circle back to that for a very big reason. There's something we have not found. Dark, did you notice what we've not found?
No, because we haven't found it yet.
We haven't found anything pretty to put in your hair. We have not found a ribbon.
That is very true. The ribbon is an item that protects you against, I believe, every element in the game. Doesn't give you a lot of defense. I think it's 1 point of defense. But the fact that it protects you against every element of the game makes it invaluable to have on your party. And every member of your party can wear it. So having a ribbon is one of the best pieces of armor you can get, despite having the low defense, because it's just fantastic. Now, the thing is, with your black belt, when you get your black belt up to a certain high level, their MDEF gets so stupidly ridiculous anyway. The ribbon is not essential for them, traditionally. But you are going to want those ribbons for the other players. Or characters.
Just think about it when you start talking about level 30 times 4 or 5 points of magic defense per level. That gets high quickly.
Yeah.
And we're already in the 20s, I think. So, very significant. Here's Lefane, which is not the one we needed to find first, but probably better to find out about that in that order, because now you know that Melmund is down at Vanilla Lefane.
And then ignore it. Dengwoo likes to play spicy.
That is where Dr. Un will be hanging out for translating the language to be able to get the item from Lefane. This is Mirage Tower. Of course, one of the dungeons of the game you could get to quite early once you had the chime and airship.
It's thought of as the end dungeon before you finally get to the final dungeon. Like that last hurdle you have to get before you're able to start work on your end game. But because of the fact that the game really could be played in just about any order, second you got the key items for it, you were good. Now the thing was, to get into this dungeon, you had to go clear at least half of the previous dungeon, the Sea Shrine. And to get into that one, you had to do some other fetch quests to get around, and normally you wouldn't get here until, like, one of the last dungeons of the game. But
if you did, you'd be rewarded with some really good equipment, particularly weapons that you would have access to. We've seen a Pro Cape so far. I didn't really see anything else of value.
But the other thing of value here is just the simple fact that there are a lot of enemies worth a lot of experience. You can get some really good levels, especially on a low-level party, and buff them up quite quickly.
Yeah, and Quake took care of a couple of those Cerebi. I don't know what the plural is, but I'm going with that anyways.
Sarah bus stop.
And in any event, there's 5 Whiz Mummies, so that's a pretty decent experience encounter.
And the undead are susceptible to Quake, so it's a nice spell to use against them. You can see he took out half the party right there, and then follows it up with Nuke, and everything's susceptible to Nuke, because Nuke is non-elemental.
Quake, Lich, or Riot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure we're going to see him try it.
Oh, yeah. No, Dengwoo loves to meme. If he can find some way of casting Fear, you can bet he's going to try and Fear carry, too, just for the heck of it.
I don't think we've seen it.
No, we haven't. But if he can find some Fear, he will use Fear.
So that means it's either a Melmund or he's probably not going to be able to.
Which would be tragic. I know he loves that strategy. He might be wondering why he's got a knight at this point and he's still searching for stuff. He's really hoping he doesn't have to go buy that opal gear that was sitting over at Canaria. Any of the stuff that he can get that's good, and he also wants that ribbon if he can find it.
Yeah, that's why he's checking some of these even when he doesn't need to find a required item. But the equipment can still force your decisions, and I really do think that was the primary motivation for Caleb getting the black belt, was knowing he would get that magic defense.
Yeah, get the magic defense, not have to do so much digging. Once he's actually locked in with his loose items, he'll be good to go at that point and can just move on.
And, oh, by the way, the black belt can still equip the Moss Immune, so the damage output can be significant. He's got a nuke staff on the black belt, so that also is very good damage.
Yeah.
That doesn't worry about it.
Now, it allows him to do nice AoE damage when a black belt traditionally can't. I believe once you start, if you put a Masamune on your black belt, you don't need that much past 32. I think it's right around 32 where the fists from the black belt actually start to do more damage than the black belt swinging it, even with the number of hits he's getting off of one over the other. So at a certain point, you just swap the Masamune to something else. But that's a question of whether or not he's going to take that black belt that high. And if he doesn't, keeping the Masamune on there is not a bad call.
Just found some dragon armor. Did he just drop Pro? Oh, because he's already got Pro Capes on everybody. That's why he dropped it. The dragon armor is the best armor that the fighter is going to equip, not only because of the defense itself, in which it would only be tied with the opal armor, but it adds elemental resistances against your common 3 fire, ice, lightning. So, especially for not having a ribbon, and we get to talk to Kobe there.
Yeah, the opal armor only gives you protection against lightning, whereas the dragon gives you all 3 of those traditional elements. So it's slightly nicer. You pair it up with the Aegis shield, which I believe has the same absorb as the opal shield,
yeah,
but other elements that it protects you against. And it's practically a ribbon with only a couple of minor faults to it. You throw a pro ring on there, and you basically don't need a ribbon for your fighter at that point.
It's significant. It's not perfect. Like going into the chaos fight, you would switch a ribbon to the Knight anyways, but you'd probably be satisfied for every other purpose.
All the way up through Tiamat normally.
The Wizhag Arsahag formation, this is the one I call the vanilla unrunnable because in current versions of the randomizer, this one's always going to stay unrunnable. That's because we touched on the encounter tables earlier. So all the enemies are stored as table values, and they have an A and a B side.
Almost like a card.
Yeah, you don't necessarily see all of those in the course of the game, which can lead to really fun results with random formations on the trap tiles. But the Wizhags and also the Iron Golems end up being the B side of one of the bosses, so they have to stay unrunnable currently, or else you'd be able to run away from the bosses, and we can't have that.
Yeah, the Sahag pack, I think, is tied to the pirates, and I want to say the Gauls are tied to Astos?
I think Garland. When you, especially when you consider the earliness of the game, those are the first 2 bosses. Yeah.
That's fair.
Lobster's casting slow. That's primarily going to be a time waster for us.
Sea Snake's casting Scorch. That's not fun. I mean, it's not a huge amount of damage with a high-level party, but it's still annoying. And they were able to resist some nukes. That's fun.
And there is a green blob in our way. Is it Slimer? Is it our friend? It is our friend. Not the runner's friend, but our friend.
Absolutely our friend. For those of you praying in chat for a Warmech, Warmech is required here, so you are going to get to see him no matter what. And he hits like a truck.
This is a good time to mention that all the skills, spells, all the magic in the game is grouped into 3s. It is the random encounters that you find everywhere in the world. It is the bosses. That is a vanilla nuclear coming out from Warmech, and it is very damaging.
Oh.
That nuclear...
nuclear almost as powerful as nuke.
Nuclear is in the boss pool. That is Warmech, who has Cure 4. That is a big piece of information.
Oh. I mean, that sucks right now, but the fact that Cure 4 is out of the pool for Chaos is huge.
Yeah, it's extremely valuable. Warmech's top 3 in HP, potentially, because with randomization, it can move around a bit. We didn't touch on boss shuffle, but yeah, the bosses are...
I was going to mention that when they actually got to the next square.
Yeah, so there's Tiamat.
Oh, you saw it over there, yeah. Tiamat lurking, that was where?
So Warmech just did what Warmech does.
And rebuffed Dengwoo.
And looks like he's going to want more power before dealing with that.
Can't necessarily blame him for that. That was kind of rude. Although this Tiamat looks pretty rude too.
It's done a lot of rude things.
That was
Does
rude.
not get the turn order on the fade.
So Tiamat lurking there in the Sea Shrine, and Caleb decides no. That was nasty all around. I would not be surprised to see Caleb go hit Volcano next and maybe go do that Agama grind we kind of mentioned earlier. Or Eye. Eye is also a good one.
Does he have a charge of Warp? If he has a charge of Warp, this is a very reasonable play because of how fast you can get there.
Well, yeah, he'd have to walk through it once, but exit.
Well, if you're going to do this as quickly as you can, you're going to want to go down to one party member, which means walking out with just the black belt. So that's why it's a little bit preferable if you don't have the quick exit to do the Agamas because it's faster to get out of Volcano.
Knowing the enemy packs that he has here and the nasty spells that he saw before, I think it was Blaze, I would be more inclined to go to Volcano than doing it here, especially just because, like, you may have to spend a little extra time walking out of it with your black belt, but there are so many safe tiles you can take there that will lower your encounter rate that it feels like it might be a better call in this particular instance.
Got Cure 4 at level 5, which of course puts it out of range for the Knight. It's pretty sweet when you can get that Knight with either Life 2 or Cure 4. Even Ruse is a really sweet spell to be able to have on the Knight.
And I did see him, I think, casting Ruse on his Knight when he tried to survive that really nasty War Mech.
Yeah. So to finish the thought when I was talking about War Mech, you have the Temple of Fiends Revisited has the 4 Fiends, Chaos is 5, War Mech is 6. Those 6 all share one pool that they're drawing from for all their skills, spells, abilities. So the Tornado, Nuclear, Lich's Nuke, Chaos's Nuke, those are all in one pool that's being drawn from those Fiends. That guarantees that there is plenty out there for them to be a challenging boss worthy of their title.
Having that Cure 4 there is great, though. Cure 4 and one of the Nuclears, because that's going to make the pool a little smaller for everyone else, and a little easier, I think, when they get to that point.
Now, if you're worried that this Topher is going to be too easy because we've seen that, then let me reassure you, because of the damage spells, there's 4 Nuclears available as abilities. We've only seen 1. There's also 3 nukes, and we haven't seen any of them.
And a bunch of other nasty spells.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
those are just the very highlights.
Yes.
Also, Caleb hadn't done Ice Cave yet, in which case it makes perfect sense to go there, but he didn't do any level
I thought he'd been here, because I think he got it, and then he wasn't able to walk it out or something.
That makes sense.
That does. Because Danny didn't have his initial next to the key item for her tracker that she's doing for us, and at the time I'm like, why? We know he has it. Clearly, he did not.
All right, so he's in Earth Cave now, which is generally going to go pretty smooth. He also knows where Tiamat is, so he's not worried about that. But, he hasn't seen Kraken yet, so there's no guarantees here.
Dengwoo back in Sky Palace, once again, hitting a couple of the treasures that he knows are taken.
He apparently already saved on that floor, so he'll probably go to the second floor and check there. I imagine looking for a ribbon more than anything. And hi, Pat.
Yeah, Ribbon would help some, although Ribbon isn't going to actually help against Nuclear just because it's non-elemental.
Absolutely correct, but still it can improve, when you run into Blaze.
Yeah.
Because that is fire damage.
What was I just saying about that spell? I seem to recall that.
Well, it looks like Dengwoo is going all the way, so he's going to try round 2 against War Mech. This is probably worthy of being discussed a little bit. One of the flag options, you've got 3 options for War Mech with an honorable mention. You can do Vanilla War Mech, which means he's treated the same way as any other random encounter is. And there's ways you can manipulate that, so you might see War Mech more frequently or less frequently. It's actually possible. You can have War Mech be patrolling, which would put him on the maze floor walking around with a robot sprite. You could go up and talk to him, launch the fight anytime you wanted to. This is Forced War Mech, which means he's standing in front of the floor for getting to Tiamat, and you have to clear that fight to be able to get the orb.
And the honorable mention?
The honorable mention was you can mess with the encounter rates, so it's vanilla, but Group 7 may not be as rare as Group 7 is. So that's the honorable mention. Probably worthy of knowing, as we have seen, what is this, our 3rd or 4th bat block? This is actually the kinder friendlier Earth Cave. Because the dev team has actually moved a couple of those bats out of the way.
Yeah, you saw that bat party room earlier that we jokingly talked about that Dengwoo memed at. That is the room where we moved all of the bats that used to be elsewhere, so they're no longer able to escape and get in the way. I believe that room was specifically designed after Jay Coper got stuck waiting for like 10, 15 minutes in a single tile hallway as a bat just flew back and forth and prevented him from ever getting towards the vampire. That was rough.
The Red Hydra encounter is a really nice one that's very high on the experience. They tend to be pretty low on their HP, so it did take 2 spells to clear them out, but it's a very nice total.
It is. It's one of those encounters that you see and people are like, you want to take this one. Red Hydras are a good one. A good pack of Gurmedusas, those are a lovely pack to find. Things like that, you need to know that when you're on a walking grind, you can quickly grab it, get your experience, and go because it's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, and every level you're getting is helping. It's getting the max HP, and obviously you want more HP. With the Moss Immune, he would like to get the fighter to 24 before that Warmech, if there was any realistic way to do it, just so he would get the extra swing of the sword for that much more damage.
And bold strategy right there. Dengwoo taking the path of down to the right to get over to the staircase there that he's going to be going up. That's a looping floor. Everyone who plays the game tends to have their own path they really like to take. Dengwoo apparently likes that particular angled strategy.
Yeah, so it's not that hard once you understand how it works. You just have to either go up or down 2 and right or left 2. You just have to make sure you go both of those and not mix it up.
There's strategy there. It influences the game. It doesn't have any bearing on it whatsoever.
No, it's just whatever keeps you straight. So if crisscrossing is a common strategy, because if you do that, you can keep track of wherever you are out of encounters. So, like, if you're on your second screen, well, did you just come up or down? And you may not remember that if it's a long, unrunnable encounter. And here's Carrie in Earth Cave.
She gets the buff out. She swipes at the Black Mage for 300. Black Belt comes out with that nuke staff, round of invis to raise their defense, or their evade. And then we get another round. Nuke comes out from the Black Mage. And a punch from One Punch for 300 on 7 hits. Fade. She comes out swinging, only doing 59 against that Black Belt.
We're about to get a rematch versus Warmech. Here comes Quad X. Is this going to do it?
She has more than 300. Hopefully that will get them in there. She now has less than 300.
Yeah, she can't have very much left just because it works from her base HP.
That did it.
Yep. So obviously it was less than 272.
So we get the buffs out on the other side, Invis 2 and a Ruse. I think that was enough the last time to stop Warmech from being able to hit the fighter at this point. So now it's just trying to get the overwhelming damage to come out before anything worse happens. Another round of Ruse just to be on the safe side. Temper.
And he might keep buffing until he sees Warmech cast Cure 4, because once you know that's there, you don't really want to invest a lot of damage before that point.
No reason to. And there's
there
that Cure 4. Wall, lock.
Wall is basically a magical ribbon, so it's casting the spell for only the one battle, but gives you the same effect as a ribbon. So it's not going to help against this nuclear, but it'll help against any elemental damage that may be behind it.
What does help against the nuclear, though, is a low roll from the nuclear. That's very nice to see.
That's true, and he may also be a little bit higher level with a little bit more magic defense. And Warmech seems a little punch-happy, actually. There's lit, too, so that's where the wall does pay off.
Although the dragon armor also helps with that.
Trivial
Wall helped
details.
on that Bane.
It absolutely did, and Warmech is down. And now you just have to man-mode this boss, and right now you're probably... Oh, you had life.
He had life.
Okay. I was going to say you're really hoping that it's not Kraken, but now you're a little more flexible on it.
Certainly helps out when you have the ability to just shrug off those deaths.
So here we are an hour in, just a little bit later than we planned on starting when this marathon schedule came up, but we're still having fun. Everybody's having fun.
You mean it's not 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock like we originally scheduled?
Speaking of this boss being Kraken, we don't even have Brack, do we?
No, we don't. We can't Bracken the Kraken, which is sad because that's a great meme.
Bye-bye, Dark. Rip you.
Excuse me. Oh, well, I had it coming. I designed this flag set. That's my fault.
He's done his party names after people in Final Fantasy 1 Randomizer, and Kraken is down.
Excuse me. After the buildup of Warmech, that Kraken seemed kind of anticlimactic, all things considered.
Well, he's only a boss 1, so when I talked about there being 3 pools, Kraken 1 is in the second pool instead of the third, so much more mild list of stuff. Still have Blaze and Thunder in that, so there's some nastiness available. I don't know what they're giving us looks for. We haven't done anything.
All right.
It's late.
It is late. It's getting on in time, and people need to sleep. But we are still here with Final Fantasy Randomizer.
Hey, the Angry Sharks have Squint. That could be a really annoying thing in the early game, but at level 21, it's a lot more mild. Also, if you are really up on your knowledge of the vanilla game, you would know that there's a problem in how the game handles the black belt equipping stuff and messes up how it calculates his armor as he levels up, and you have to go into the armor menu in order to correct it. Well, that's another one of the bug fixes that have been put in, because a lot of the bugs in FF1 were anti-player, and so the bug fixes normalize it a bit and make it more friendly.
It's really nice the number of fixes that we have in the game. It makes the whole experience of playing Final Fantasy a lot more bearable, because with all the broken things the original game had just due to things not being programmed quite right, it could have been quite tough at times to get through the game. I think one of the first fixes I remember people talking about was just fixing the thief run chance because of how poorly programmed the run chance in the game was. The fact
Tiamat is broken into pieces, by the way.
Oh, that was quick. Blink and you miss it kind of Tiamat.
Brack has a reasonably high success rate. It's not a majority success rate, but it's significant enough that if you keep casting it, it's going to work out. So we have Lich now for Dengwoo. Lich can be killed with Quake, and it works first try.
Oh, yeah.
So Brack can work for you against Tiamat and Lich. Quake can work for you against Lich, and those spells can enable you to get past the fiends a little bit faster and lower level than you normally could. And sometimes it's just the more reliable way to kill them, but it'll only work against the first form. And you see them in Temple of Fiends Revisited, it will not work, except Quake against Lich.
Quake does work still against Lich. I think it's, in the original fight against him, it's a 33% chance or so, and it's more of a 24-ish% chance, I think, against the second form of Lich. But still, 1 in 4 chance. You just cast it enough times, it'll happen. Happen sooner or later.
Yeah, and that can be really handy if you know it's a terrible fight where maybe he's throwing nuke out against you, and you're better off if you get the Quake to kill him first round instead of having him live through your hits. Right, Earth Cave for Dengwoo.
Get in there and take out that carry we know is lurking there, although he does not.
Well, you've seen 2 of the 4 now, so the odds are pretty good.
I think we're actually up to 3 of the 4.
For Dengwoo, or what we've seen?
Okay, well, for him. For Dengwoo, yes. You are correct in that regard.
You mean technically correct. Which
It's
is the best kind of correct.
Yeah.
Going for this check. This is a rare one, but because you have to go through a fight to be able to get this treasure, and it turns out to be steel armor, which would actually not be that bad if we didn't have better.
It's good. It's one of the better armors for the thief or the ninja when you class change them, because ninja can't use the top level armors that the fighter can, and steel is right up there with ice and flame armor, just without the elemental protections.
Yeah, as far as best in category goes, your elemental stuff is going to be the best for the ninja. The flame armor, ice shield, or vice versa, fire shield, ice armor are very common builds for a ninja, because that's the best stuff they can get, plus elemental resistances that it gives you. And if you can stack the opposite elements, you're so much the better. So as long as Caleb has a reasonably easy time, easy being very thin usage of the word, against Warmack, they're on extremely good pace here.
Yeah, they're each about a dungeon away from being able to get over into Topher. I'd say that puts them sub 120 Topher easy, maybe sub 115. That's a fantastic pace for this flag set. And nice to see, since, we want to make sure we stay underestimate.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
It'd be so nice.
The marathon can use the help.
Warmack, however, we'll have to see, may have other ideas.
Warmack laughs at your schedules.
The spicy robot chicken does not pay attention to whatever time it is that you want him to do things. I believe this is Caleb's first attempt at Warmack. Discovers the Cure 4. Nice for him to see that.
That happens in a different order because Cure 4 is a spell and Nuclear is an ability. So in each case, they're the first slot, but what Warmack decides to do can be punch, ability, or spell. Technically, he could run away, but he's not going to.
There's the chance for them to use any of those 3 abilities, and I believe they can have a spell list and a skill list each of 8 spells.
Yeah.
So that some of the bosses can have very deep spell
Oh,
lists.
that's bad.
Ooh, crap.
And that was just basically from punching. I don't think he's seen the Nuclear yet.
He has not.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get more of a reaction once he does, assuming it comes to that.
Well, Bane didn't hit.
Invis 2 is not going to help. Bane, I think, is 3 and 256. It has a slim chance.
Yeah, against the end-level bosses, of which Warmack is included, it's 3 and 256. It was the Hail Mary prayer. And
he reset out of the Bane. He didn't even see the Nuclear.
No, that's going to require... I think it's going to require him to go grind that black belt at this point, something he's been resisting doing, and I can't blame him for that, but...
I'm a little surprised he didn't, because really, when you're going to do the black belt strats, you want level 32 as quickly as you can get it. The biggest debate is, if you're doing the black belt strats, how high do you take the black belt? 32 is a wrecking machine that just destroys stuff, and 42 is strong enough that if Chaos had any better sense, he'd be running away from you.
One Punch Man. Yeah, it's the thought really just boils down to where your scaling is at, and for up to 250%, like, I know people want to go to 32, but as this Warmick proves, sometimes 250% is enough for a 42 grind.
Well, for example, a boss with 1,000 HP, you're talking about going to 2,500, and we're hitting for 300 damage with these nukes. So you start doing the math on that, which I'm not going to do because I'm live on Twitch, and it would always betray me.
Yeah, never do that. So you can see him moving around his party, putting some of his weaker members up front. He is going to purposely try and wear them down so that he can go into a specific set of spike tiles that are in this dungeon, so he can do a nice grind and get the dead weight, quote-unquote, out of the way first.
Volcano, if you need levels, is really unique because of how many opportunities it offers you to take fights without any off-tile encounters. Ice Cave, the Eye, would be better experience per fight than anything we would see here, but not necessarily per step.
Yeah, the fact that you have the eye tile sitting there with an open tile next to it, potentially giving you an off-tile encounter, that makes it a little less nice in some regards, even though the eye, I believe, is more experience.
It is more experience per fight than what you would see out of the Agamas here, or even the Red Dragon, which is a little bit higher than the Agamas. But you could get ambushed by those specters throwing blaze at you, and 6 of them doing that would wear out a black belt even at a significant level. So it's a much higher risk, even if on average it's not that high, but it's substantially higher than these Agamas, where you're never going to take an off-tile encounter.
Now you'll note that he was wandering a lot on the lava, and especially running those around at the end there, back and forth to try and wear them down further. You're going to take damage on the lava, you're not going to get encounters on the lava. It's a good way to quickly burn down your weaker party members so they can get out of the way. Put that Black Mage up front and continue the process. Although, of course, the Agama ain't having none of that. he's going to continue trying to punch the black belt instead. And missing the black mage.
The Agamas have 2 hits, which is a little bit of a concern. You like them to have 1 low hit. Yeah, he did stock up on heals. It's not the full stack you'd like, but okay. Now down to just the 1. So he's getting 4 times the experience now funneled into that black belt. Guessing he will stop at 32. Just to mention, there is a school of thought of go level 40.
So you can earn 42 by the time you're done with Topher?
Yeah, by the time you'd want it by the time you're getting to Kraken 2. The other thing that it will do is that high-level black belt in the lead of the party will cause a lot of randoms to run away from you, and that is another subtle time save over the course of a run. But that's usually something you want to do towards the earlier side of a run. This is actually towards the later side of the run. So 32 really does make the most sense here.
Yeah, you can get pretty deep into the strategy for this game. If you decide to do your grind early enough before going to a dungeon like Earth Cave, a lot of the enemies in Earth Cave have a lower morale score than the ones in the late game. So then a high-level black belt will cause a bunch of the stuff to run away from you, and that just saves you time in all the encounters.
Another thing we haven't touched on is these experience values. So we've already mentioned that they're getting bonus experience. The thing we didn't touch on, though, is that the experience scale has been totally changed around. And that is because it was possible to get more experience in an encounter than than the game could handle. It was an overflow of experience.
The gas D's specifically.
There were a couple that could do it, but gas Ds were the most notable because they were pretty common in Temple of Fiends.
And unrunnable.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gas Ds had such a high base experience then that when you actually put the multipliers on there, they'd loop the thing. So they had to go in there and change what they did, how the experience was allotted, so that when you got experience, it actually lowered your level that you needed instead of raising the amount of experience you got.
Yeah, so let's say an enemy gives 100 experience, and you need 1,000 experience to level up. If you're getting 5 times the experience, it's going to reduce your 1,000 down by the 5, so it's going to be
200.
Yeah.
I saved you from doing math on Twitch.
Yes. So we have the encounter that broke the experience scale, as I like to describe it, and that is the Gas Dragons as our first encounter in Temple of Fiends Revisited for Dengwoo. He got in here 115. Caleb still has at least 1 fiend to clear.
Danny, being awesome, has given us the exact time she saw on the timer, 1:15:02 for his first attempt.
Danny, our honorary member of the couch, thank you.
She wanted to be here. We are sad she wasn't able to make it, but, you know, she's with us in spirit as well as on Discord.
I just imagine if she was here, she would have, like, charts and stuff and notebooks filled out with all this information.
Sure. Maps laid out, and she'd be doing everything.
4 zombie Ds. Again, that would have been an unrunnable encounter in the vanilla game, but it's shuffled. This is one of the things that tends to make Temple of Fiends a little bit nicer, is that most of the unrunnables did appear in here. Just because it was drawing them from all the other dungeons.
And it was purposely designed to be a gauntlet that you tested yourself against as you traveled through the dungeon.
Now, our Angry Medusas here are noted for having high amounts of hits. They're not doing very much damage with those, so that part looks good, but they're one of the enemies that can really scare you if they have a touch attack. So we've seen them have Death Touch, and when they're hitting you with 12 chances for that Death Touch to apply, that's nasty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw a fight or a battle with them in the spring tournament that a couple of our players had to suffer through over and over again, because they not only had a high hit rate with Death Touch, they also had a high ambush rate, and I think they rolled Blaze as well.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of killing in that one.
They burned a lot of Light Warriors. That day they were called the Gurmedusas of Death.
We've got Dengwoo versus Lich. He's breaking out the Quake. He's got 2 people to cast it. That's the way he wants to win the fight, but he's doing damage.
He's doing it just in case. He wants to meme, but just in case he can't.
The one unfortunate thing for him, though, is it's at the same level as Quad X, and Quad X is a great thing to use against fiends who you know you've put a good amount of damage onto, just to see if it's enough to get them clear.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's a high evade enemy, being able to use Quad X after some damage is a great way to finish it off. Nuke, however, is going to finish off Lich. Onward.
And it's interesting to note, I don't believe he has a ribbon of any kind on...
No, we haven't seen one in this seed.
I could just tell from the damage alone that the White Mage suffered there, because she took a pretty nasty chunk from Lit 2, which traditionally is just a kind of a chip spell that you see in this dungeon. But when you don't have any protection against it, it can be quite spicy.
Yeah, I think his mage levels are actually a little low. I'm not sure he broke the 20s with them.
He might eventually. He's taken these encounters as he goes along, because he's got a nuke stack, so why not?
Yeah, 2 Agamas and a Fire Giant is a very fair amount of experience. I mean, we were talking about Caleb grinding single Agamas, and you've got 2 Agamas, which is obviously more.
So he's here at carry now, getting his spells ready, getting, looks like some buffing.
And he did go to 32, so that is probably going to be significant enough. I'd be surprised if Warmack lives through 2 turns, unless he's just really evading. Carrie has said you didn't need that ninja anyways.
I mean, he really didn't. It didn't serve any purpose except to take that the blow of that. He'll wander on. I didn't see the damage she did. I'm assuming it was pure damage she killed him with and not death touch.
Water's here. This is one of the more notable encounters from the vanilla game because, of course, it would be unrunnable. You get it in a significant pack. And you try and do lightning damage, and it just doesn't do that much because actually they're weak to ice.
You're giving us a look over there, Caleb. I can see it.
He's having trouble getting past mummies. He's just getting these low rolls on fades.
And they're doing a lot of damage, I noticed. Clocking in huge hits against his black belt, even though his black belt had a ton of defense at this point.
Dengwoo pretty well cruising so far, but coming up on one of the true tests of any seed, and that is almost the FF1 special.
Yeah.
The FF1 special is when that one lives, and then you run.
Mm-hmm. That happens a lot in the base game.
It's not even a randomizer thing. We're talking about that's a vanilla thing.
The game knows you're trying to escape. It low rolls you on 1, just enough that you know the enemy only has like 3 health points left.
And then you run away.
And then you can run away now. It's fine. You've wasted a good minute there watching your spell get cast very slowly in the base game. Feel free to run now.
So we do some party shuffling here because the way enemy targeting works, it's most likely to target the first person, then the next most likely is the second person, and then 3 and 4 are roughly the same chance. The reason that Caleb has kept the party member down in the second slot is because that actually really ups the odds that it's going to roll to the top party member and protects those mages quite a bit from physical attacks.
Yeah, that ninja is 50% likely to be hit. The black mage is then 25%, and fighter and white mage are 12.5% each to be hit. And if there's a party member that's dead in one of the upper slots, the game will re-roll that again, making it even less likely that your bottom players are going to get hit. The other thing that's worth noting is he moved Beef, his fighter, to the 3rd slot, specifically so that if all the other party members around him die, there is a chance the 3rd character in the party can actually get into an AI loop with the boss they're fighting, and if for some reason you can hold A and pray and get your character to hit them and they're not hitting you for much, you can loop that and potentially get through it that way. Also note that we have a Warmech again.
Yeah, so Warmech had a win against both runners. Dengwoo got it on the 2nd try, got his revenge. The chip damage from the Lit 2 takes out the mages. He's in a bad shape here. He needs the turn order. He's got the turn order.
No.
It was not enough damage, and Warmech wins again!
Oh, That is heartbreaking right
That
there.
was with a level 32 black belt who I didn't think that fight would go 2 rounds.
That was heartbreaking.
So that's a case of you'd like to see it go towards the spell list, but the black belt has an impressive amount of magic defense right now. Not nearly as much on the physical defense. He's not even equipped any armor right now because he doesn't have anything that would be better than the base absorb that the black belt has.
And I want to note that, I mean, a bad Topher here is not going to prevent Caleb from being able to make it through right now, even though right now it seems like Topher is very much on the side of Dengwoo. But these are kind of boss stats, at least on that Warmech, that feel very much like he's rolled at the high end of a lot of what he does. And in the early games of these flag sets that we ran, when the boss stats were higher and harder, Dengwoo did excel, and you can kind of see this in action right now, just, our backseat commentating and coaching and all that. These are those are Warmech that really favored Dengwoo's play, so I'm not surprised that on his second attempt he was able to get through it. And now, we're up to Chaos.
We are up to Chaos. Now, we've not seen a lot of the nastiness that is available from these fiends. We know that Cure 4 is off the table, but we still have Nuke on the table. We still have a couple Nuclears on the table. And we have no ribbons. So, Tornado would still be quite effective against this party.
Pretty devastating, yeah.
And, oh, by the way, Chaos can roll a whole lot of hit points.
We got a lock, we got a fast, got a ruse, and a wall on that fighter to try and get him ribbon protection.
Random encounter ice, they're of course the exact same as what's in the ice cave, so they're a very good source of experience that Caleb has found, but we're going to kind of focus in here on this Chaos fight and see what we're up against.
We got decent turn order. Chaos came out swinging against the Black Mage and didn't do much. He doesn't hit that hard. Second lock, Invis 2. And we're getting a swing from the fighter. 10 hits for 210. That's not bad. He's going to want to see more damage than that.
Damage poison has put a lot of hurt onto the other party members, but he's got the fighter in such good position that if that's the worst he has, the fighter is going to be able to carry on as Dengwoo waves bye-bye to the ninja. We don't really need him anyways.
10 hits for 494. That is much better. That is much more where he wants to be. Chaos can still roll a lot of damage. 5,000, I think, at the scaling we have if he rolls full high. But enough hits like that in the 400 range, and he could be over in a few rounds. And he knows Cure 4 is off the table, so doesn't have to really worry about Chaos coming back with that.
Real quick, he's really upped his evade right now, so those punches are basically free rounds. What the worry is the spells and the abilities that come out from Chaos. Not enough, though. Dengwoo has taken it down before Caleb was able to clear Warmech. That was a great run. 125. Now, we budgeted 2 hours, and that was no lie on the estimate because it absolutely could have taken that. But the seed gave on the item placement, and Dengwoo routed it well.
And we see the taunts continue.
Yeah, he's got to turn his screen and show this. This is round 3 versus Warmech. So far, the score is 4-1 for Warmech.
Yeah.
He's going to have a winning record tonight.
Someone is walking away from this battle a winner. That's all there is to it.
Caleb says he hates Warmech.
Hey, you made it through.
There we go.
Yay.
4-2, the scoreboard for Warmech. He's got a winning record tonight.
Yeah, that was a particularly nasty Warmech right there.
Yeah, and we could blink and miss Kraken just because that
Yeah.
32 black belt is,
Whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Does a lot.
Kraken couldn't stand up to that, but Warmech was a beast.
So from what we saw in that Topher, most likely Caleb's going to cruise through it with this black belt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that of course assumes we saw everything, and obviously we didn't because we didn't see too much from them. Actually, Dengwoo, why don't you come over here?
Here, I will swap
Yeah.
you my headset, and then you can chat with Trenton. Here you go, sir.
And then I'll switch with Dark if he thinks of anything he wants to ask. He doesn't.
This is actually really comfy.
Yeah, it is. It's a very good couch. So Dengwoo, it was a long road to get here, but you took care of business.
You know, it was a long road, but you know what? There was no better person I'd rather have played against. Well, maybe somebody else now. No, it was great because we put on a bunch of races, which you guys have already explained and stuff like that, and you know we mixed up a lot of what we were gonna do leading up to this event and stuff like that. So this is probably one of our more serious probably things, but at the same time, you know, we had our little shenanigans, you know, that you probably saw on the camera. So
By the way, speaking of the FF1 special, one enemy left and he runs away every time. The game knows.
the game knows exactly that. This was a very interesting seed. I don't even know how to explain it.
Well, the item placement ended up being pretty friendly. We didn't have to
Yes.
do a lot of exploration for the loose, but you made that decision pretty early on to sail over to Ordeal. Caleb ended up making the same play, and that ended up being where we found the floater, and then it just felt like it was on from there.
It was really awkward when I did that Earth Cave play, and all I had was 2 casts of Fade. I'm like, no one runnables, please.
Well, that's a good question to ask is, what did you think of the Tri-State? Like, what did you predict it was going to be in your mind? What were you thinking was going to be the Tri-State?
There was so many options.
Should point out, we let Discord vote on this, and it was a 4-way tie.
Our community voted for it, and of course they know a lot of, you know, what could really become hazardous to us. And I really thought Earth would probably be Tri-State just because that's a very dangerous early play. So, but it wasn't too bad because we had Exit and Fade.
The magic was ridiculous.
And the nuke, after I had already exited out and I searched Earth 1, there's a nuke stick.
Yeah, we ended up finding 2 of them.
What?
Yeah, was it elf locked?
Oh my goodness, that would have been glorious.
Yeah, so starting with white
That's what
mages
I'm
and then
talking about.
Fade, and then I very dearly wanted us to re-roll the seed at that point. Too easy.
Yeah.
But then we got to Warmack, and he did put up a winning record tonight, so, you know, it was not free.
I think he had paralyzing touch or something like that, or it's stone touch. I don't know what he had. And I couldn't find a soft anywhere, and that was awful. And this could be
They're for sale at the
glorious
first town
battle.
of the game
Yeah,
every time,
it's-
so you
I
don't get
know.
soft locked.
Oh gosh, Carry 2 letting me down.
So, by the way, one of the big divergences between the two of you was the reaction to not having the ribbon. You decided wall was good enough, and you stuck with the fighter. Caleb switched over to the black belt, and I'm just assuming that was a significant part of the decision. He says, yeah, he had wall, so he went with the black belt instead.
He's also more of a black belt between both of us. He'll run with the black belt more. I like the fighters absorb and stuff like that. I did search a couple extra boxes you've seen looking for a ribbon just for that wipe protect, or you know, that protection. But I like the fighter a bit more just because the black belt, I've seen it. He's wiped trying to level it and stuff like that. But I guess with a nuke stick, it's not terrible. So come on, Kraken 2. I mean, let's go, Caleb.
So, by the way, of course, they had a lot of snazzy T-shirts designed by Dark Moon for this event. Hey, there's Nuclear number 2 of 4. Kraken had it all the time. One of those T-shirts was the Game Changers, and we ended up finding 2 Vorpals. So for those who haven't followed FF1, that's our nickname for the Vorpal, is the Game Changer.
I wanted to use it so badly, but with Masa right there, and I didn't find a katana, so I was like, kind of useless.
Quad X does the job against Kraken 2.
Although I do gotta admit, of course I lost my train of thought there as I was watching him quad X that. That was pretty nice.
If you had
Hang on.
Just out of curiosity, if your first round with Chaos had gone bad and you had to go back in there, would you have switched to the Vorpal instead of the Mazda for your second time?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would have been heavily tempted towards it. With the information I knew and how many rounds it took, yeah. I mean, I know I'm kind of spoiling it for Caleb here at this point, but I mean, it doesn't matter anyways because you managed to cake Lich 2, which had I don't know how much health, but it was ridiculous.
Oh, really? Yeah, you tried what, 5 times?
Yeah, I tried like 5 cakes. It didn't want to take it, which then took another I don't know 1,300 damage or something to kill it or something. I don't know how much it was. It was really high.
It was a beefy Lich.
It was a very high health Lich. P.S. You see Caleb healing up after that fight, and I always recommend people do that because you'll almost always get an encounter before you get onto the next floor. You gonna take the victory lap?
Yeah!
There we go.
So
We're having fun. Race is over.
So one key thing that we should point out about Caleb's victory lap here is he made sure to do it after he's behind me because last time he did this when he was in the lead, it kind of cost him the game.
So Invis 2 is to raise the evasion of his party. It takes 6 of those to get you to max evasion. So we're trying to get those up early and often to defend the party. Fast comes out right away because you want to get the black belt doing twice as many hits. 32, he does a lot of hits, so 16, and you were hitting for what, 4 or 5?
Yeah. I was in 10 after the fast.
Oh yeah, okay.
But surprisingly, even after that fast, I'm still hitting about the same as him, but he's relying on a lot more crits.
Well, he hasn't gotten the buffs up yet. Now he's got the tempers on.
Well, it's a good thing he put up the wall after 3 turns. That was close.
Here comes Blaze.
I'm judging you now because I can.
The mages survived, though. His mages are a little bit higher level than yours, I think.
I was trying to kill off my Oh, okay, show off. All right.
1,200 damage. And that goes to show you how much HP Chaos has, that's not enough. 1,600, that is enough. GG. Caleb finishes the seed.
Mine was a closer match against Chaos, okay?
It was. If anybody wants to see more about this, best place to start is the Randomizer website, FinalFantasyRandomizer.com. Thank you so much to everybody involved with Final Fantasy Randomizer who's supported everything to get to these points. Caleb and Dengwoo put themselves out here. Make sure you show off that shirt there.
Yeah. There.
The Game Changers.
Yeah. That was fun.
So now the Lifetime series is tied, right?
It is. It is now tied. He finally caught up to me.
Okay. Well, well, you may want to stay tuned to the SpeedGaming family of networks next week. I'm just saying. We may have to have the rubber match.
When it mattered, who won?
That's going to be his comeback from now on.
That's fair. That's fair.
Quick thoughts before we hand this off.
This was a lot of fun. I really want to thank SpeedGaming and Twitch for having us here. This is super awesome. I mean, what else can I say? But thank you guys for coming out and doing Dark Moon's yelling at me. I don't know.
I'll take care of it. I'm just
We-
keep saying what you're saying.
We got a special prize for Dengwoo.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead and get it out real fast.
No, just thank you guys for coming out and doing this. Trenton, Dark Moon for doing the commentary for us. Spells app and Mizada, thanks for hanging out. This is a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun. Hope Twitch chat had a lot of fun, and we have a...
Okay.
Okay.
Little jokey ceremony thing. So, Dengwoo, we were jokingly talking about this for 16 weeks now, and I know you know that we did this. So because you went through all of those races to get to this point, and you became the champion of the road to SGLive, we have presented you with this trophy. That one...
Instead of a webcam, he's probably going to put that on.
Oh yeah,
on
that's his
stream.
avatar.
Be
for a
sure to
while.
watch.
So that's yours, and then next year when we do the road to SGLive again, you will have to contend for that trophy. And in the process, for being the winner of this year, you also get a championship ring.
So again, we'll say congratulations to Dengwoo for winning this. We're going to have to take a break here and get set up for the next run as part of the marathon here at SGLive, powered by Twitch. So thank you, everybody in chat who turned out and supported the run. We appreciate each and every one of you. Hope you all had fun. We certainly did, and there's plenty more of fun ahead on the SGLive Marathon.
Thanks, SpeedGaming.